Amnesty International is calling for major tourism operators' websites such as Airbnb and TripAdvisor to ban listings from destinations in Jewish settlements in the West Bank, East Jerusalem and the Golan Heights. In a recently published report, the human rights NGO said that the online tourism giants are profiting from illegal settlements and accused the websites of turning war crimes into a tourist attraction. The report highlights listings of properties for short-term rental, as well as tourist attractions, restaurants and hotels that feature on the website of four of the biggest online companies. Our reporter Joel Carmel spoke to Gil Nave, head of media and communications at Amnesty International Israel.
Amnesty International, with its report Destination Occupation, is a part of our campaign regarding the violations of human rights of Palestinians under the Israeli occupation of the occupied Palestinian territories. Our call is for Expedia, Booking.com, Airbnb, and TripAdvisor to stop not only profiting from violations of human rights and war crimes, but to stop supporting and fueling these situations, which is what they do by publishing more than 300 listings of various sites and hotels and apartments for rent in the settlements that are illegal.
And is there anything specifically that happened recently that led to this call, or is this just a general act towards your campaign?
This is one more step in our campaign. Our final goal of our campaign is to bring about to proper legislation all throughout the world that will ban trade by states with the settlements and will eventually bring to the stop of this illegal situation.
And what do you have to say to those who claim that this will potentially harm Palestinian Arab employees in the areas that you're calling to boycott?
This is a cynical claim. My heart goes out to any Palestinian or Israeli who might be harmed by this move, but eventually you cannot justify an illegal situation that causes suffering to millions of people by underpaying Palestinians in an Israeli-owned business that is located in an illegal place.
So, as you know, Israel has a fairly hardline right-wing government, and there's a good chance that it will after the election too. Do you not think that policies like these serve to antagonize Israelis and ultimately don't really contribute to the goal of bringing the sides together?
No, actually, no. If we would have thought that way, then we wouldn't have been campaigning. We believe that the Israeli public is much smarter than what all the ministers who are currently trying to incite in order to distract. We believe that the Israeli public does not want to be a part to war crimes. We believe that the Israeli public does not wish crimes to be committed in their name. And if we wouldn't have thought this way, then we wouldn't have campaigned towards the Israeli public. I personally think that, as an Israeli, I personally think that it is a shame that this illegal situation is being compared to the rest of Israel. I have to say, I am an Israeli. I have been living here all my life. I wish to stay here, but the settlements are not Israel, according to Israeli law, not only by international law. So the constant comparison and claim that anyone who criticizes either the Israeli government or the settlements is anti-Israel, that is an extremely dangerous claim, not just for democracy in Israel, but it's an extremely dangerous claim for Israel in itself.
Mm-hmm. And are there any other disputed areas in the world where Amnesty is also calling for a boycott of the travel industry?
We are currently examining the situation in other regions in the world. As you probably know, Airbnb last week have announced that they are pulling all of their listings from South Ossetia and Abkhazia, and we are looking forward to see what goes on in the future. The claim that Amnesty is picking on Israel is a foolish claim. It is easily debunked. We publish more than 200 press releases, reports, or policy papers regarding human rights violations every month from all around the world. So claiming that Israel is a target, well, I'm sorry. It's not only foolish, it's embarrassing.
Gil Naveh of Amnesty International Israel. Professor Gerald Steinberg, Professor of Political Science at Bar-Ilan University and President of the NGO Monitor, told reporter Nomi Segel that the Amnesty campaign demonizes Israel and should potentially boomerang on the organization.
It's not that Amnesty simply did a report. It's a big campaign. There are videos, there are all sorts of posters, there are various other aspects. Amnesty is going all out, attacking tourism to Israel, attacking the Jewish attachment to the holy places and Christian. They shouldn't be under Israeli control. They have stolen Palestinian lands. Israel's accused of doing some manipulating dark secrets, all sorts of other things. It really is. It's a very nasty political campaign. It's demonization. It's BDS. It's boycotts. It's everything like that, and absolutely no substance to what they did.
How effective do you think such a campaign will or can be with regard to the companies themselves as well as travelers?
It's hard to tell what the impact is going to be. It's also not clear how much money and how long this campaign is going to go on. But right now, I would say that it's probably not going to have the impact they'd like it to have. It was not that they were not the first ones to publicize this. Human Rights Watch did something similar a few weeks ago, and they convinced Airbnb to delist about 120 places in the West Bank. But they got a lot of pushback. They got a lot of negative publicity out of that. They really had no idea what they were doing, what the reasons were, why apply to just to the West Bank and not to all sorts of other places around the world that are occupied, that are disputed. And Amnesty is following along that. Their campaign is even nastier than Human Rights Watch's. And I think from the initial responses of some of the more important firms like TripAdvisor and others, Booking.com, it's probably going to have a very limited effect and might even boomerang on Amnesty. There's most of the publicity, most of the media coverage of the Amnesty campaign has associated Amnesty with anti-Semitism in one way or another. And if that label sticks to Amnesty, then they're not going to have much success in getting this campaign any further.
And do you think to some degree then it compromises its stance on other issues as well?
Amnesty, for at least the last, 17, 18 years, since the beginning of the boycott movement of BDS back in September 2001, Amnesty has been one of the major organizations involved in this. They are very thoroughly compromised, and it often comes out, particularly in the British context. One of the strongest statements condemning Amnesty came from the Jewish Board of Deputies and from the Jewish Leadership Council and other frameworks within the UK. And they're seen very much in a broader context as having this very strong anti-Israel bias. I think that their effectiveness around the world is decreasing. They've become more radical on other issues as well. It's a package deal, and their leaders are making statements that alienate a large part of what we might call the traditional human rights community. They're much more involved in radical politics than really showing concern about human rights. This is going to reinforce that image that Amnesty has really lost its ability, its moral foundations, and has gone off into these kinds of very radical political positions.
If we're taking a broader look at boycott efforts in the Irish Parliament, there's a bill that's been put forward that's still in the process of advancement to boycott goods from settlements. Do you think these kinds of initiatives can be more impactful?
In the last few months, and probably for the next year, 2019, we're going to see a major push on getting the BDS movement and boycotts to have some teeth. Up until now, they've really had no impact on Israel. Mostly it's been college campuses, resolutions which have no implications. There's been no economic costs, but they've ramped up the effort. The anti-Israel forces have ramped up the efforts, And what we're going to see in the United Nations probably in the next couple of months is a blacklist attacking firms that do business with Israel. That's also part of Amnesty's goal, is to promote that, to prepare the ground for that. Same was true for Human Rights Watch. So I think the United Nations Human Rights Council's blacklist is going to be the potentially the most damaging element of this. And if that takes off, we'll see it adopted, repeated, echoed on university campuses in Europe, in the United States, Canada, and elsewhere. We'll see it being echoed in church BDS, renewed church BDS resolutions and applications. They'll try to apply it to Israeli banks and other sectors, just like the tourism focus of the Amnesty report. They're trying to expand their impact. It's true that many people have said, you've been pushing BDS for all these years, you have nothing to show for it. They're trying to demonstrate that they can have a significant impact on Israel. If they don't succeed here, that may be the end of the BDS movement, so it's a double-edged sword. We'll have to see.
Professor Gerald Steinberg, president of NGO Monitor.